this video, I'm going to go over a special case when it comes to generating a surface from breaklines. This is a case where you have a complex surface, and after you've generated your surface, not all the breaklines are being honored in your surface. So this is an example. I just created a tin from the surface I generated, and if I zoom in onto some sections, you'll see where some breaklines were not used. So what I have here, these are the breaklines I used. You can see them all underneath here, and then I just have the tin laying on top of those breaklines. So that way we can see if there's any gaps or anything like that. So here we can see where there's a couple gaps where it's not using the breaklines properly. Now, this only happens with rather complex surfaces. It's not with any other surface. And the solution is to, after we've generated the tin like this, we will manually pick those missing break lines and add them on top of the surface, and then just retin it. So I'll start from the beginning here so you can see what's going on the process. So this is the original drawing, and if I go to my surface operations, I already have my surface here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my surface color settings. I'm just going to change it to none, so that way my surface is all on all one color here. And I'll create a new layer, and I'll call it a underscore 10. I'll set it to the current. What I'm going to do now is just tin my surface here. So I'm going to tin the ground surface. I'm going to do draw. And because it's a rather large surface, I'm going to have to do faces instead of polyface. So once I do this, it's going to start processing the surface, and then we'll continue from there. Okay, now that we have our tin generated here, you can see it's just all white. If you don't want it white, you can just change the color on the layers. It'll depend what the colors are on your break lines. But here we can start to see where the break lines were not used in the surface. So what we can do now is go to our MS modeling and extract breaks, and we're going to extract that same surface, and we're going to make sure we don't have clear before extract on. Press OK, and we're just going to zoom in and select these break lines that were missing. And then we'll keep going like that across the whole surface, just inspecting, make sure we're adding the correct ones. For example, these lines up here, we don't want to add them because they're outside our boundary, so they're not needed. But for lines, for example, like these ones here, we want them in our surface. So we'll just add all of those in there, and I'll skip ahead in the video until once they're all added in. Okay, now at this stage I finished adding the rest of the break lines to the surface. You can see down here in the command line. So what I'm going to do now is just redraw the tin so that we can see the changes after that. So what I'll do here, I'll just create a new tin so that way we can also have two to compare against. Call another one called a underscore tin 2. Set the current, and I'll turn this one off. So I'll just go to tin. It'll be the same surface because this is the same surface we added the extra break lines to. I'll do draw and faces. So now I have the second tin generated. I'm just going to do a quick little look here, and I can see that now the missing break lines have been added as part of the surface. Again, this one is outside the boundary, so it's not one I added anyways. But just looking through here, just doing a quick look, make sure everything is working as it should be. Down here in this area as well. So it seems to be working correctly now. So that's how you can inspect your surface and fix any missing boundary entities that were not added to the surface when it was originally selected.